Tumba Tumba, you may join us. It's a Palestinian round, which we have sung before. Tumba Tumba, Tumba Tumba, la da 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 da, very easy.
Yeah, it's very straightforward.
Okay, so where's
Can you,
Well, it picks up great, don't it?
I know, but I just feel like you're out of the circle,
okay.
out of the arc.
Okay, everybody.
Okay.
Would you like a note?
Okay,
That's all right. I'll
you get us
get you,
started.
yeah. Tumba, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Tumba, 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 tum, tumba, 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 tum, tumba, 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 tum, tumba, 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 tum, la 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 la. La 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 la. Tumba, 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 tum, tumba, 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 tum, tumba, 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 tum. Tumba, 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 tum.
Keep going.
La 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 la. Tumba, 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 tum. La 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 tumba, tumba, tum. Tumba, 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 tum. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Louise and the choir. I'm Janet Gollery McKithen, and I'm the minister of the church in Ocean Park. And I'm here to welcome you this morning. You might be wondering if you're welcome here. Are you wondering that? Yeah. We are multi-faith, so you're welcome if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, if you're Hindu, Buddhist, Wiccan, Muslim, Hindu, atheist, Christian, or some combination or something else altogether. You're welcome if you're single, married, divorced, gay, transgender, non-binary, very rich, or living on the edge. We welcome you if you're fidgety or you're very focused. We don't care if you're more religious than the Pope. Show me somebody who is. Or if you haven't been to the mosque since before the pandemic. We welcome soccer moms, tree huggers, latte sippers, vegans, and junk food eaters. We welcome those who are in recovery or are still addicted, those who like organized religion, and those who are repelled by it. We especially welcome you if you're standing in the need of prayer. If you've been hurt by a religious community and you're here very cautiously, we hope you find this to be a place of healing. We welcome you if you're having problems, you're down in the dumps, or if you're standing on wings of eagles, or a little bit of both. We especially welcome you, and you, and you. Welcome, and you on Zoom. Welcome to the church in Ocean Park. We want to begin by acknowledging that we are currently sitting on stolen land. In Santa Monica, the land was taken violently from the Quiche, the Chumash, and the Tongva peoples. We acknowledge the harms of genocide, forced assimilation, enslavement, and destruction at the hands of U.S. settler colonialism. We also acknowledge that our communities and country was built on the backs of people who were stolen from Africa, placed into bondage, and forced into labor. We acknowledge that we benefit from that labor that has never been repaid. In our acknowledgement, let us commit ourselves to healing by helping to create a more just and equitable world through the struggle of changing how we see things that we think are normal, but that are actually systemically hurting people. We all have biases, and it takes intentionality to build compassion for people whose lives are different from ours. At the church in Ocean Park, we intentionally work together across boundaries to tear down unjust systems and build new relationships of healing and love. This morning, you'll hear from a variety of people. If you hear something that you disagree with, know that your voice is just as important as whoever just spoke. No matter how many times you've been here, how many times they've been here, whatever they said is important, and whatever you think is just as important. Thank you for being a part of this community this morning. Thank you for helping break barriers and to build more compassion. Thank you for being a part of the healing and bending the arc toward justice. We center ourselves each week with a chant by Thich Nhat Hanh. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now, 3 times. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. This morning we are in for a wonderful conversation about Lent and Ramadan, and from 2 people that you may recognize. We brought them in especially for this day. We're glad that they could make it from where they both live. And we're going to start off with a video. Did you want to describe it?
Yes, this is a video about Ramadan, and it's Ramadan in a community of predominantly African American Muslims. And there's so many people that don't even realize that there are African American Muslims. Probably 25 to 30% of the people who were brought from Africa had Muslim as their faith tradition. Yes, and then, even after enslavement, some of them kept to that faith tradition, and some others eventually converted. So we're going to show you a short video about their experience in Ramadan. This is a mosque in Washington, D.C.
The call to prayer at sunset at Masjid Muhammad in Washington, the oldest African-American Muslim community in the United States. More than 500 African-American Muslims worship here, just as many before them have worshipped since the 1930s. Talib Sharif, a retired U.S. Air Force veteran, is the new imam at Masjid Muhammad. He says the experience of black Muslims in the United States is different from that of most other Muslims.
Most of the African Americans in America come from the church experience. We became Muslims in America just a little differently here. And because we are Muslim, most of the Americans, most of our family members, they're not aware of Islam. So we have to explain a lot of things. We have to share a lot of our life with those around us because it's a minority in terms of religion.
24-year-old Jocelyn Cole grew up balancing her Christian life with Muslim traditions. Her mother is a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, while her father converted to Islam before she was born.
So whenever I would be with my father during the month of Ramadan, I remember as a child, going to farmers market to find dates to break fast. So even though I might not have fasted the whole day or even understood, I just remember eating dates with my daddy at sunset.
While the women greet each other inside the sisters' room, the kitchen crew rushes to serve a Ramadan dinner of chicken and rice with baked beans. For Ibrahim Mumin, the great-grandson of a slave, Ramadan is an important opportunity to share his faith with non-Muslims. But he says 10 years after 9/11, many Americans remain afraid of Muslims and ignorant about Islam.
I was at a reception and they asked me what country am I from? Because many Americans have this perception that all Muslims come from another country. And I'm from the United States of America. I tell them, I pulled up my passport, says the same thing as your passport says, United States of America.
Imam Sharif says there is a strong connection between African Americans' historical struggle for freedom and equality since the end of slavery in the 1860s and the Islamic tradition of seeking spiritual freedom. Ramadan, he says, is a chance for black Muslims in America to remember that.
You know, we're coming out of slavery. So there was a journey to see humanity free. And becoming Muslims through that experience, it was highlighting three particular words: freedom, justice, and equality. That's what we wanted. And every human being wants that.
Mona Rabi, VOA News, Washington.
It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. That sounds good again. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's my mother, it's my father, and it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's my mother, it's my father, and it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. Now it's the preacher, it's the deacon, and it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's the preacher, it's the deacon, and it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. Oh, the harmonies are sounding good, y'all. Yes. So today's message is called Fast and Slow. And it's about the traditions of Ramadan and Lent. So if you would please.
First, we must recognize that one of the pillars of
Yes,
faith,
talk right into the mic, yeah.
one of the things we must recognize is one of the pillars of Islam is fasting during the month of Ramadan. O ye who believe, fasting is prescribed to you, and it was prescribed to those before you, that we may learn self-restraint. Fasting for a fixed number of days, but if any of you is ill, this prescribed number should be made up from days later. For those who can do it with hardship is a ransom, the feeling of one that is indigent, but he that will give more of his own free will is better for him, and it's better for you that ye fast, if only you knew. Ramadan is the month in which was sent down the Quran as a guide to mankind, also clear signs for guidance and judgment between right and wrong. So every one of you who is present at his home during that month should spend it in fasting. But if any one of is ill or on a journey, the prescribed period should be made up by days later. God intends every facility for you. He does not want to put you in difficulties. He wants you to complete the prescribed period and to glorify him, in that he has guided you, and perchance ye shall be grateful.
Thank you. And this reading is from the biblical book in Hebrew scriptures of Joel. And it's usually read in many Christian churches right on Ash Wednesday from the 2nd chapter of Joel. Blow the trumpet in Zion, sound the alarm on my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming. It is near. A day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness. Like the blackness there is spread upon the mountains a great and powerful people. Their like has never been from of old, nor will be again after them through the years of all generations. Yet, even now, says the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting, with weeping, and with mourning. Rend your heart and not your garments. Return to the Lord your God, for God is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love, and repents of evil. Whoever knows whether God will not turn and repent and leave a blessing behind him, a cereal offering and a drink offering for the Lord your God. Blow the trumpet in Zion, sanctify a fast, call a solemn assembly. Gather the people, sanctify the congregation, assemble the elders, gather the children, even the nursing infants. Well, here we are in Ramadan. How are you feeling, Craig?
Energized, energized. It's, and I say that with deep respect and reverence because I had the fortune to attend a interfaith iftar. I believe it was Wednesday night.
Yeah. What's an iftar? What is an iftar?
Iftar is when we break the fast, the meal that is that consists not of dates, which is what we traditionally do, but actual meal. In reference to square thing, salad, starch, meat,
It's
know,
sort
that
of like
kind
what
of thing.
they had there in the video.
Yeah, so, bread, and the significance of that is that as we fast, we are in communion. We are doing it to raise a spiritual and cleanse ourselves spiritually. And the breaking of it allows us to come together, as a community, because now we're sharing a meal. There's nothing more, I guess you could say, satisfying to share a meal with a brother or with someone who, experiences the same thing I do. And as a result, we can reminisce about, what brought us here, the state of the world, various things that you more or less discuss over the dinner table at home. We're now in communion with each other, talking about it. Now, of course, the evening doesn't end there. After fast, we do what's something called Tawheed, which is an additional set of prayers, 8, 9, depending, in which we get closer to God because the evening has set in. Now we're dealing with the night, and we're asking for the sins to be purged, and that practice gets deep and involved, where we more or less do quote unquote 8 rak'ahs, and a rak'ah is a set of prayers beginning with Bismillah, Ashhadu Allah, and ending with Salam Alaikum, Salam Alaikum, to the negative, to the positive, and the negative spirits and elements at us.
So you've got the physical activity of fasting from sun up to sundown with no food, no water, no heavy activity, no sex, no smoking, So that is a serious fast.
Exactly.
Now, in the Christian tradition, this Lenten season, because of course now Islam, because of the lunar calendar, so it rotates, backwards through our calendar, and it just so happens that this year it's coinciding with the Lenten season. And Lent in Christian traditions is a time of repenting, a time of fasting, a time of reminding yourself where you want to be. In some traditions, it's a time of preparation for people that are going to come into the faith tradition. In my church, in Roman Catholic Church, we'll say my other church. In my other church, there are people who are preparing actually to be received into the church on the Holy Saturday night, the night before Easter. But there's fasting in Roman Catholic tradition. So there's fasting on Ash Wednesday and on every Friday in the Lenten season, and leading up to, of course, Good Friday, which also is a day of fast. Now, we don't get to do it in community. I mean, there's some people that might, but we don't have a specific meal where you break the fast like the iftar. And there are some times when, you hear a lot of people say, well, I'm giving up chocolate. I'm giving up, you hear a lot of that. But the fast can be many different things. It can be giving up having those thoughts about somebody. Or, a time of reaching out to someone that you haven't reached out to in a while. The fast can be letting go of many things inside of yourself. It can be a spiritual cleansing. And of course, similar to Islam, it's definitely a time of almsgiving, a time of generosity that would go beyond what you would usually do. We'll remember that when it's time for the offering, But of course, in thinking about all of that, it's the point, and I would imagine it's also the point in Islam too, not to end the time of fasting and then go back to what you were doing before. Perhaps it'll mean a turning away and maybe letting go of some of those things for the whole rest of the year too. So what do you think in thinking about Ramadan? Now, you heard they were saying there that there were many African Americans that came into Islam after being a part of another tradition. Is that part of your experience?
Oh, very much so. I grew up as a child in surroundings very similar to this one. That particular demonstration was Unitarian. And my childhood was spent much like what Malcolm X had when he more or less came to the light. He recognized that white folks weren't necessarily devils because he was praying alongside of those folks who would be classified as white. And they didn't see themselves as white, they saw themselves as human beings. That was a very powerful moment, I think, for him as well as for me.
Now that's when he made the Hajj, right? When Malcolm X made the Hajj.
He had made a series of 4, before I think he actually came out with that declaration. And so, with me, it was more like a recognition that as a child I saw this, but I got sucked into, the whole idea of the Nation of Islam and that protest movement, for what it's worth. And I was real with it until, I made a trip east to Pittsburgh. It was a youth conference in reference to CETA. And I met a brother, who claimed he was Muslim. And, I immediately grilled him on, the white man is the devil. And he said, brother, instead of saying that, you need to focus on being the best man you can be. And so at that point, I recognized, there's a different type of Islam. And he more or less went on to say, essentially, that, we need to abstain from such items as pork, coming to God, when you have problems in the way of prayer, these types of things. And so, it's a shock. And, I guess not even 10 years later, I'm finding myself, I had gone through and was attracted by Buddhism, the Nichiren Shoshu, Soka Gakkai. I was attracted by that. And I was chanting to more or less get out of my homeless state. And it was answered by, a crazy woman who needed somebody to, share her apartment. I ended up sharing her bed. After all that, I was working at LA City, and many of my brother's friends were students at LA City, and they were Muslim. And they said, well, you done tried all this, come with us. And that's how I became, I more or less learned from them, the 5 pillars, declaring that there is no God, fasting during the month of Ramadan, making 5 daily prayers, making a pilgrimage to Hajj if you are financially able, and then the alms giving. These are the pillars. And so it's been an experience, eye-opening to say the least.
You'd say a journey for sure, right?
A journey for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's some people that say to me, how did you go from being Presbyterian to Catholic? Yes. Oh, you're going to ask that, Gail? Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I loved my church, actually. I really, I grew up and I loved my church, and I sang and in the choir, and I did all kinds of things. But what was interesting, I think that for me, I was wanting a deeper prayer life. And it's not to say that the Presbyterian tradition didn't offer a deeper prayer life, but there was a different way that it was presented, I found, within Catholic traditions. And so when I got to college, I went to Temple University in Philadelphia. And on campus, big campus, urban campus, mostly commuter, a few people lived on campus, but there was a Catholic Newman Center, and that's Catholic campus ministry on a non-Catholic campus. And they had the best lunches on campus. Needless to say, I showed up there, right? And so they, say they would serve lunch, but then at 12:10, they would always have Mass. And I remember, and I was just writing about this for an article, when I was young, I went to overnight camp, and I went to church. I went to Catholic church with a friend from overnight camp. And we sat in the balcony giggling, of course, right? Yeah, of course. But I just remember there was something about the prayer that was calling me in a deeper kind of way. And so at the Newman Center, I would always sit right outside, and I could see them. They were having noontime Mass, and I watched that. And then they found out that I played the guitar and sang. So it was called Come In and Sing for Mass. And I always laugh because I say, I was leading music for Catholic Masses before I was Catholic. But then I discovered, right? I found out about Teresa of Avila, or Teresa of Jesus. And I read about, she was lively. She played tambourine, love that, of course, right? And a person of deep prayer, and for Women's History Month, right? So at a time when the women in Spain were only supposed to leave the house 3 times, when they were born, when they got married, and when they died. Mm-hmm. I know. Uh-huh. So now she became a Carmelite sister, and she said we're not praying deeply enough. So she enacted some reforms in her order. But it was also a time of the Spanish Inquisition. Oh, wow. And so they said, we're going to take all the books away, especially from women. And they said, take the books away and burn them. And her sisters were very upset. And she said, you know what? They can take our books, and we can still reach the heights of that deep prayer. All we need is Our Father, the Hail Mary, and the Glory be to God. Say your prayers slowly and contemplate in between each line of prayer. And she said, that's all you need. That's our Women's History Month moment, okay? But that, that helped to draw me into being Catholic. And then I learned about the Lenten fast. And so definitely, we were saying fast and slow, because it slows you down, right? And isn't there something about you're not supposed to do a lot of heavy work, strenuous work during the time of Ramadan?
Well, the idea is you can work, okay, but in order for you to enjoy the benefits of it, you cannot more or less be strenuous, and you have to adopt an attitude. Even arguing or having a deep disagreement, is thought by many to be compromising the benefits of the fast. This is why I believe people were asking, for a ceasefire, for the Ramadan, because they know what was being placed upon them is indeed of deep spiritual sense that, allows us not to react, in any physical form. So, I mean, that's inherent, and that's, from, there are differing schools of thought on it, but that comes back from, the beginning in which the Quran was revealed, to the prophet. It took 23 years in order to do that. And so that same attitude or that same discipline was laid out then. It's that kind of commitment. You're not just committing to not having food, but you're committing to a certain spiritual level within that.
Now, it's very interesting because at LMU, in these past few years, since I'd say about 1 year before the pandemic, they started to pay more attention to the calendar, the various calendars of the people that are a part of the campus community, including, I think the first year that they put out an email, it was because Ramadan began on the first day of finals. And so we were asked if we wanted to, on the first day of finals. And so, and at that year, I actually had lots of students from Qatar. And so I asked them, I said, do you want to either take your final a day earlier or wait a few days after? Because I know right at the beginning of the fast period, it can be very difficult. But they said, since it was the first day, they said, it wouldn't have hit us yet, so we'll take our finals right away. But they've been doing things. We have our interfaith iftar tomorrow night, and we'll all gather. But then every Tuesday and Wednesday during the month of Ramadan, we offer a student, well, anybody who wants to come, a small iftar. And so I usually go free food. Do you sense a theme here? Okay. So I usually go, and we do break the fast. We start off with dates, and then they always, offer some food.
I think it's significant when you said free food. The way some of the brothers, and I had heard this, at the prayer today. If you feed someone who is indigent, you are rewarded with tremendous blessings, especially during this month. So, that's something that a lot of us take very, very seriously. Not just whether or not the food will be there, but who will provide it, because many of us want that blessing.
Amen.
It is what it is.
So I think, so how about this? What we're going to do is that, Louise, if you would lead a song, and then we'll have time for community sharing. And Craig said, I'm not going to be able to say anything during community sharing like I usually.
This is the heaviest period for me.
Now.
I get to grill folks.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm going to get grilled.
So be thinking about, preparing for community sharing. And thank you very much, Craig, for this conversation.
Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Melt me, mold me, fill me, use me, Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Now, I was going to stop here, but I'm hearing you, Dr. Kim, sing a harmony, and I want to sing this again, and you put the microphone close and sing a harmony.
Can we do Fall Afresh on us?
Yes.
Okay.
And let me hear your harmony. It's so beautiful. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on us. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on us. Melt us, mold us, fill us, use us, Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on us.
Thanks. So we're going to use that mic to pass around Craig. And actually, Reverend Janet, would you start us off with community sharing by telling us about this wonderful Bible?
This is a Bible, it says on it, Barbara Butler. That's my grandma. And inside, if you look at the first page, it says the ancestors of my grandma. Gobert and Butler's. And then if you turn one more page, you see my name is in here. All the descendants are in here. And my all of my brothers and sisters, and then my cousins are in here, and it's a beautiful, it's a treasure. It's a treasure. It's from my grandma, from my mom's mom. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, Kim, I reacted about you starting out as a Presbyterian because my family was Presbyterian. And I too, not that I was focusing on prayer, because I didn't really believe in it when I was young, because all my prayers had not been answered. But this feeling of emptiness, or just not, there's no depth to the experience. And so I can kind of relate. It just felt like everything was pro forma, you know. Now, we also talked derisively about Catholics. You know, I remember we had to go meet with a priest at the Catholic Church for my confirmation, and, you know, we were just like, but anyway, I could really relate to that sense of wanting something deeper. I found it kind of when I started going to the Mennonite church and their social justice, and then as I got older, coming here. And that's where the depth comes for me. And, you know, I now pray through singing. That's the only way I feel that deep connection. So thank you both. I learned a lot from both of your experiences.
This is really fascinating. You know, part of the work I'm doing for my thesis has to do with understanding conversation the way that theologian David Tracy presents it. And as I was listening to you, it really relates because having grown up Christian, being aware of Islam and, of course, being aware of Ramadan, I didn't quite know a lot about it. And, having studied theology, I obviously know more about it. But this week, and listening to you, Craig, I read an article from America Magazine, which is a Catholic magazine, and it was written by theologian Father Brian Massingale, who's a priest who, during the time of Lent, keeps Ramadan. And he noted what you noted, which is that Ramadan is communal-based. It is about community, and it is about solidarity. And I know from growing up Christian, Lent is not as community-based. It is, in a way, but that sense of togetherness, solidarity is not there. So it was just so fascinating hearing both of you. And I want to do this again and again and again and again. So
Thank you. And wonderfully, Daria sent that article, so I got to read that article also from Brian Massingale, who's actually a friend of mine. And it's great to think about the Lenten feast, Lenten fast, in terms of the fast of Ramadan. And Daria doesn't even know this quite yet, but I got our entire class tomorrow night invited to the interfaith iftar on LMU's campus. Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, anybody else? Yeah. We're going back here and they'll go over there.
Okay, I'm Ethel, and I was born Jewish to two Jewish parents. I was raised Jewish, and I am still Jewish. But I am seeing a connection. It must have been a half an hour ago. They were talking about it, Ramadan and all, the fasting, and I relate to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. That is the Jewish New Year's. It's in September, October. It's different than the regular New Year's, January 1st. Yeah. But on Yom Kippur, which is the most religious one, we fast. And we throw away our sins. And it relates so much so to what Craig has said.
I'm so glad you said that, Ethel, because that's, of course, an important thing, an important piece of what fasting and the Day of Atonement is an important piece of the tradition of the people of the book. So I'm really glad, so I don't have to talk about that. And there are two things. One thing that is sort of the irritating thing that I need to say, which is, I was thinking about Teresa of Avila and her life in the moment in which Jews and Muslims have been expelled from Spain. And what that meant for the Inquisition and for women of faith, and what was destroyed in Andalusia, which is a whole other thing. But what I think is most meaningful to me in this period is that the opportunity to continue to learn and to deepen my understanding of traditions that I did not grow up with, right? And yeah, I can name off the 5 pillars of Islam, and I've taught that at Manual Arts High School, right? And whatever, right? I mean, I can name that off. I won't, but
I mean, okay. And I have, like a social studies book understanding of the importance of Ramadan, I could, like that. Right, but what I have seen this year in Ramadan is videos of Palestinian children talking about, being interviewed about how's Ramadan for you this year? And the couple things that really stood out to me. I mean, one is we're fasting every day. Right? Like Ramadan, right? We know that. But I think what I really did not understand is the importance of iftar. That every night there's a community celebration, that we come together to rejoice and that gratitude that this is the month in which the Holy Quran was revealed. And that's the other part, you see, and so I saw people who were celebrating an iftar meal with boiled grass and lemon because that's all they had. And that's what I have learned this year about Ramadan.
She brings up a very, very significant point. The first time I actually went through fast, one of the deepest lessons I learned is the value of food. I'm going without it for at least 12 hours. That, that signals something. Because when we put ourselves in the place of those children, okay, who are going without, see, I had a choice. This was one of the pillars. Yeah. And so, in my choice, abstaining from it put me more in tune with the value of it, and not having it. Yeah. And so now I can more or less identify with those that don't have it, for a much longer, stretch of time.
Wow. And you may have heard this also, some parents were saying, we're not going to require, these are some parents in Gaza saying, we're not going to require that our children fast because they're fasting every day. Without choice.
But I thought that the children didn't fast. They don't fast from food, right? Don't you have to be a certain age? Anyway, I belong to a spiritual group that was started by a Muslim man in Indonesia, and I was just reading it, these papers that I saved about it, and it's a lot of preparation before the fasting even happens. Many people go out, get their hair cut, their fingers, they wash their body with special things. I can't remember. I think there's some flour involved. But it's also just the mindset. It's not just the food. It's, being in a spiritual state, not gossiping, not speaking angry, your emotions, keeping your emotions calm and in a spiritual state. Some people don't have sex during Ramadan. And it's a beautiful, beautiful time. I've done Ramadan myself a few times. I don't know if I did it right, and I'm not a Muslim, but it's pretty amazing.
One point that I think needs to be clear, Wendy. Yes, you're correct. Children it's not required that they fast. And further on that point, pregnant women. are, prohibited.
And menstruating.
Right. More on that. Ramadan is not meant as a hardship. It's there and implied with blessings if indeed you do. Now, if children do take it upon themselves to fast, they are rewarded for it. But again, there's nothing in there that says we have to do this. It's meant merely as something for us to take if indeed you have that faith and have that commitment. Also, if you're on a journey, and I remember this because I was in Las Vegas, and the kitchen closed at 7 o'clock. The fast didn't break until 8. So I had a dilemma. I didn't know this. I said, well, okay, I'll fast and make it up, which is also permissible. So, there are things when we more or less look at it, we have to understand, what the intent is. Yeah. It all starts with intent within that respect.
And then also with the, I was on a study abroad trip to Ghana with and one of the students, one of the LMU students was Muslim. And so it was when Ramadan was occurring in May and early June. And so there we were. And that was an amazing time, first of all, because there are always, there are ways to say to the community, wake up and you better have your last meal before sunrise so that you can, get ready for the Ramadan fast. Now, in Ghana, that was happening at about 3 in the morning. You would start to hear, all of this. And then I was listening to something this morning, and in some places there would be like beating of the drums, depending on what country you're in, to say, wake up and get ready because the fast is going to begin. Now, in Catholic traditions, if you're either over a certain age or have certain, infirmities, you aren't required to do the fast, the food fast. But that doesn't mean that you wouldn't do the interior or the other ways of fasting and almsgiving.
It's interesting. I'm always interested in how do you change habits and behaviors, and most importantly, consciousness. And both of these practices say, do something physical, do something that's discipline to get to the interior life. And it's just interesting to me that you have to make a physical change to get to the interior. And it seemed like I was raised a Catholic, and Lent was very private. You didn't even share what you were giving up, depending on where you were. Where in the Islamic culture, it just sounds so much more friendly.
And it'll be interesting because I think in certain communities, like Father Massengale and people are beginning to think of it in some different kinds of ways where, but it would be interesting if we had in Catholic tradition a way of breaking fast together. To think about that could be that interesting. Now, I know Louise also has her hand up at some point, too. Okay.
What I was thinking sort of follows up on what Joe was saying. And I also grew up in a Presbyterian church, which is like church from the neck up. It was very intellectual, but not physical in the sense of, I don't know, the mysticism and things of the Catholic Church in that tradition or Islam. And so both Kim and Craig, the commentary today is really enriching for me. And I think that the thing about it is something like fasting does cause a physical change. And it's interesting because it's connected to a spiritual idea, but this sort of experience that we are both, intellectual beings, but we're also physical beings. And having those sort of traditions that reinforce that seems to me richer than the tradition that I frankly, grew up in. So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, my church was it was a quiet Presbyterian church, you know.
Yeah, they're all quiet.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily all of them, but mine was, because there's some African American Presbyterian churches that are not quiet. Now, mine was an African American Presbyterian church that was quiet. You know, one day my sister said, in this tone of voice, "Amen." And one of the deacons came up and, patted her on the shoulder and said, "Oh, it's okay, it's okay." But they're not all like that. They're, but it is interesting, though. It is great.
Okay, so I'm going to throw in a little something different. I was born Methodist, and the whole family were Methodist all through. But in Trinidad, we have Hinduism. About half of the population are Hindus now, East Indians. And there is a group of Hindu religion called the Sindhi. You have the Sindhi Hindus, Sindhi, and they have a 40-day fasting as well, just like the Christian community. And I was sort of attracted to that, that type of Hinduism, because of the fasting. You couldn't wear shoes. You have to have your feet salt on the earth. You couldn't wear shoes. You didn't have to wear. You couldn't shave. You couldn't eat fried foods and things like that. Fried foods. So I was sort of drawn to it because I was born with a severe tonsillitis. My tonsils weren't good at all. And I used to have fevers and so on, and my throat used to swell big, and then my mother would come with a feather like a chicken feather, and dip it in iodine and, and put it on and that used to burn. But I couldn't go out barefooted, and I still used to do it. So that used to aggravate my tonsillitis. But I'm just mentioning that because so many religions have their time of fasting that motivate us to look at the more spiritual, aspects of our lives. Yeah.
Oh, we can't forget Louise at some point. Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, you've been waiting on that?
Yes, you have.
It's Lent and Ramadan. I also want to remind you it's Women's Month, and this week is Purim. And Purim is the story of a strong woman who saved the Hebrew people.
Yes, story of Esther. Esther.
One year we celebrated Purim and St. Patrick's Day and Palm Sunday all at the same time.
Thank you. The pressure's on. I just wanted to say that I was once exploring Jewishness. My dad was Jewish, and I went to a very reformed rabbi, Stan Levy, and he said atonement is the same as at-one-ment, and I thought that was really cool. But anyway, I grew up with parents that were staunch atheists, but we had community because my parents were in the Communist Party, and we had community events and everything, and I just wanted to say that. But the other thing is that I like to talk about habits because I think about that a lot. It's like, why do all these religions focus on we want to stop doing these things? Because I think humans are so prey or we can get addicted to stuff. And I have problems with that area, with food. And right now I've given up something for Lent and maybe forever, watching TV and eating at the same time, because anyway, I'm not going to go into all my bad habits, but I do have some, and you let go of things so to feel the Spirit. And thank you, I pray with music too, because, you know, my parents affected me in terms of their beliefs. So. Oh, I love this. This was great. It was great to hear you. I love hearing the personal stuff too.
One of the other things that I've noticed as a Muslim, especially if we talk about Women's History Month, you are familiar with St. Augustine, correct? Now, let's talk about his mother.
His mother.
Oh, yeah, your mom was amazing.
No, Augustine's mother. But your mom was amazing.
Let's talk about your mom.
Well, wait a minute. Do we know who St. Augustine's mother was?
What was his mom's name?
Santa Monica.
Right, Monica. Her name is Monica. Yes, Saint Monica,
but
as in Saint Monica.
The key is Saint Monica, or
yes,
Santa
or
Monica.
Santa Monica, yes.
Now, you know, we are residents. This church.
Yes, we are. We're in
So
Santa
if we,
Monica.
I mean, I would be slapped down, you know, in terms of the hand, if indeed we talked about Women's History Month. We didn't talk about St. Augustine and who his mother was.
That's right. And Monica.
I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, and let's just say Augustine was, what would we say? He was a bit wild, shall we say? And his mother kept an eye on him.
I hear that he was so revered within the Catholic faith that he wrote much of, you know, the practices.
Oh, yeah, he is. But in his living, before he turned over a couple of new leaves,
Yeah.
several of them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's just say there were many.
That's a whole nother discussion.
That's a whole other discussion. Let's just say, all right. So we and I guess we'll end up now. Okay, all right. I mean, we'll have to do Monica another day. But she, as my mom would say, what do they say? She used to send up the timber. There's some old saying about that, about, you know, your knees are all scuffed up because you've been praying for your children so much. Yeah. And I think that Monica's knees were seriously scuffed up praying for Augustine. But yeah, so we'll have to do that another time.
Did you have your hand up? One more.
About community and things, I was just thinking about this. I worked at a Jewish summer camp in Simi Valley called Camp Alani. I have a friend who's Jewish. And I worked there a couple of summers, and every Friday night they did Shabbat Shalom, and I just loved it, and I felt a very strong, you know, community, you know, there, and we sang a lot of, you know, Jewish, you know, music and stuff, and it was just, you know, interesting just learning, you know, the Jewish, you know, stuff from, you know, me working, you know, there, and they had other Jewish people from, you know, Israel to work, you know, there during the summer, and I got to, you know them and got to know sort of their life, you know, there.
Great experience. All right, well, thank you all. You have one more?
I was thinking about St. Patrick's Day. I was thinking about St. Patrick's Day, and I was thinking about, well, I was reminded by what Kim said about the difference between famine and fast, right? And, you know, in a famine that's deliberately imposed on the Irish, on Irish people, and the million people who died in that famine, imposed by occupiers, and that the Irish government is the only European government that has expressed solidarity with the Palestinians from their lived experience of a brutal famine imposed by an occupying force. And so as we remember the children who are in fact not fasting, but are starving, I think it's an important spiritual practice, and I really appreciate what Craig said about fasting in solidarity with those who are being starved awakens us to the real importance of our shared humanity.
That's a good note to take a moment of silence and to say thank you to our speakers. Thank you so much. Obviously, we want to do this again.